Hello, my name's Sarah. I am the professor for OL 612 Conflict Management, and this is your textbook video. So I have the Canvas page open with I think we have four books, four books you can choose from for your reading. You only need one of those books for your required reading. You can, of course, if any of them sound more interesting, but don't save those for later, but put a pin in it. For now, we're just choosing one, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about each book, why it's in our list. This is really important. What's on Canvas and in this video is the most current book list, and I communicate that with the Wolf Bookstore, but often I am not finding that we have a good flow of back and forth of conversation for me to know if that's what's actually showing up at the bookstore. So really try to focus on what's in my Canvas course. Even if there's something in the bookstore, it could be a ghost from a previous term and isn't part of this current term selection because I do change the books out pretty regularly. Okay. I hope I said that okay and it makes sense. So for this class, conflict management, and if you've watched there's this welcome silly video where I go over the whole class, talk about what we're going to study and all the assignments and the late work policy. That's in another video. And then there's a third video in week one, which is the lecture video of the actual vocabulary and let's get started on what is conflict management. So that's a different video than this one. This one is just to give you the books. Okay, which apparently I have a lot to say about books. One of the books I don't have here. Is that true? I'm just looking one more time. Yeah, I'm not. One of the books is probably left at my office on campus. I'm at my home office right now. But let's go over what I've got first. The first book that I have is Good Inside by Dr. Becky Kennedy. She has a podcast, I think it's called Good Inside, and there's quite a few videos and media artifacts you can find on YouTube of her interviews with her in them or her just talking. And she's really talking about parenting and how do you manage conflict with kids. And basically this idea of good inside, a practical guide to becoming the parent you want to be. Now, wait, stop. Don't fast forward me if you're not a parent. Just because you're not a parent doesn't mean this isn't the book for you. If you're going into education, if you work in a caregiving or care uh, role with others, this book is going to really teach you how to slow down and allow for emotions and anger and guide people through difficult situations. And depending on the job you have, you might find this book really helpful even when working with uh, adults. And I don't mean to say that in a dismissive way, and it does even sound a little funny to my ear, but she will say this too. Like, I think at some point we're going to watch her TED talk in the class, and she does talk about how the research that she did to learn about neurodevelopment of children and how to understand birth orders and family dynamics can help us in all sorts of conflicts in our romantic relationships. Definitely when we are working in an office and maybe we have a supervisor and we need to manage conflict up, or if we have subordinates or um, that have a conflict between subordinates in the office, and one of them comes to you to say, this person did this. How are you going to manage that? This book is a really good book for all sorts of things, even though the primary focus is a parenting book. I think there's a lot to learn in here. Um, this is a really popular book, and because one of the reasons why it's also added is because we have a lot of people from the education master's program at Western, and interpretive studies and criminal justice. And this book is something that people from all different areas sometimes choose. And you might just choose one because of the way you want to handle this, what you want the focus of the class to be for you. And I really want you to make it your own. And on that note, we also have a book called Fight Right. Fight Right is how successful couples turn conflict into connection. So this is really where we're going to really start a lot of the class and a lot of the research since I've been studying the Gottmans for, I think, over 20 years. I've been using the Gottman research in my communication classes that this is a book that just came out. So a lot of the book is actually going to feel like a textbook designed for this class, but because I know their research pretty well, as I was designing this class, I am definitely using what I know. And then they came out with this book, and I'm like, ta-da! So you'll hear me talk about something, and then you might read it in the book, and now you know where I got it from these very highly intelligent psychologists, and their research is very sound. So, this is a great one for romantic couples, obviously, how successful couples turn conflict into connection. Uh, and they divide couples into what's called the masters or disasters. And the masters are the ones who know how to navigate difficult situations and move them towards a functional conflict. So, as opposed to when conflict gets a destructive conflict where it gets polarized and there's defensiveness and attack and criticism and contemptuousness, and people are isolating or silent treatment, like all of that stuff is happening over on the disaster side. But here on the functional side, which is where our class is trying to live and grapple with how does that really look, what does that really look like? They've got the research on it. So that's a really good one. There are quite a few examples in that book. So, because it's written by the married couple of Dr. Gottman, the Dr. Gottmans, Julie and John Gottman, both with PhDs, they both are interweaving their examples for each idea. Okay. The other book that I don't have is called Rule Makers, Rule Breakers: How Tight and Loose Cultures Wire Our World. And this is since week 2 of our term is intercultural communication. I really liked the focus of this book, that why sometimes our conflict is sometimes there's someone who's just really, this is the rule and there's not a lot of wiggle room or allowing for context or flexibility. And what's really happening with that? Why does that happen with some people? And other people are like, we're going to figure it out. And oh, that rule's just not really something we should follow. That's just going to limit us. We can break that rule this one time, or all the different kind of things that happen. And I'm not talking about like the law necessarily. I'm just talking about things like it, the way we share space in our homes, or the way and the implicit culture and the implicit rules that develop in shared spaces or shared cultures or co-culture groups. Think of it as break room politics, which is the messy type of politics, right? Messy politics is the break room politics. It's where all the hullabaloo goes on, and how did someone use the microwave, and who took a break and who didn't take a break. Let's think of it more like that. And seeing how all these kind of social norms are affecting and creeping into our interpersonal relationships, our important relationships, and why we keep butting heads with some people over and over and over again. So that might be able to unwrap the tight and loose culture systems that we will be kind of going over, not kind of, that we will be looking at this term. So that's the book I don't have here, but that one is available. And then the last book that is for you to choose is Brené Brown, The Atlas of the Heart. Now, Brené Brown has a lot of books, and I've used many of them in the classes, But this is one I decided this is the one I want. I have the hardback copy. It's a paperback now, thank goodness, because this is a pretty big book. Let me just show you. Like this is a pretty big book too, but this hardback book is actually a lot larger, and that's because it's really designed well. It has more glossy pictures and different things about, and it's really going into the vocabulary of emotions. And if this looks interesting to you and you really want to get into more of an understanding of the emotional life of conflict, we do have, just like we have a week on intercultural communication, we also have a week on emotions and the vocabulary of emotions. So if you've been reading Atlas of the Heart, this Brené Brown book, when we hit that emotion chapter, it's probably going to click right in for you and you're going to get it. I just think I really like the way this book is designed. And of course, Brené Brown is one of the leading people for leadership and organizational management studies. And she's really turned her work towards leadership. So you're probably hearing it in other classes as well. And if you haven't heard of her before, you're about ready to hear a lot about her. Okay, so those are the four books that you can choose as your required reading. Which one will you choose? Which one? Which one? I can't wait to find out. One of your first assignments is to tell me which book you chose and why, and what you think you might get out of it. So we can dive into that. The other thing is if you're really like between two books or you're not sure, I we don't always have a lot of opportunity to be in a class where you can really design the class for what you need. And in my first video, where I go over the syllabus and what this class is about, I do talk about this, but I really want you to think about the menu of this class and what you are choosing that will direct you where you need to go. This is a type of self-exploration. I cannot promise you in this class that conflict is going to get any easier for you, or you can all of a sudden avoid it and you'll never have conflict. That's not what we're doing here. We're learning how to emotionally regulate, take care of our own mental health, how to deal with our own levels of stress, and some of our backgrounds or experiences that have left us the damage, has left the damage of our reactions to difficult situations. And we want to start being in a place where we can respond instead of react. And that means we need to learn what's snagging us up. So if you're having trouble picking a book, pick the one that sounds, ugh, do I have to deal with that right now? I don't usually say that. Usually I say take the path that can be the most smooth. But in a class like this is a real opportunity for you to build your self-awareness and your attention skills and take time to dive into those harder topics. There is a couple of other books I have here that I just wanted to tell you about. One is this interpersonal conflict book. This is the 10th edition, and I think this is even an older edition, or if you can find the ninth edition or the 8th edition, it doesn't matter. It has almost all the vocabulary plus a lot more that it's a traditional textbook, interpersonal conflict, and Hawker and Wilmot have the definition for interpersonal conflict that we will be using in this class. And there a lot of the vocabulary can be here. So if you really like having a good book to hold on to, you could get this book if you wanted to. Not required because it is prohibitively expensive. I think I post two of the chapters that I think are the most do the best job of explaining some of the topics that we're going to cover. That's why I say just find any edition you can or a used copy. And if you're a book person, you might really like having this one around. Not required. It is a very expensive book. These other two books are totally different type of books, but I wanted to share them with you because I think they give you the climate of this class and where we're going with it. The first one is Comfortable with Uncertainty. This is written by a Buddhist monk, and this is just a little book of meditations. Yes, I said meditations. And it's really to build your awareness and your self-awareness of how you're able to live with uncertainty. Now, the truth is, we don't know what's going to happen next. We live in a lot of structure and we create architecture around our lives in order to make things as predictable as possible. But the truth is, that's not really a thing. Sorry, bad news. I hate bringing in the bad news. So, when we say comfortable with uncertainty, it's just realizing when you are in a position of leadership, whether that's assigned or in the way that you hold yourself as you move through the world, leaders emerge when they know how to manage conflicts, manage relationships, and remember about keeping that cognition, that cognitive complexity and be able to zoom out and become aware of the world around them. Awareness is going to be one of the main themes of our class, and we will discuss breath work and meditation and how to deal with uncertainty. So, this is not on the list. This isn't one of the books you need to do, but some people really enjoy this as a side read. I read it almost every morning. I just open it up and read a little piece of it because that's things I need to work on is being comfortable with uncertainty. This next book is written by one of a world-renowned negotiators, Aaron T. Wolf. He's actually a professor at Oregon State University who does water conflict, like me. And it's called The Spirit of Dialogue, Lessons from Faith Traditions on in Transforming Conflict. So Aaron Wolf's book, it's just a little book and it's got all sorts of pictures. It goes into different religious practices and indigenous practices, as well as the major religions. Uh, that major meaning the ones that are most dominant in the global cultures, and talks about how they approach managing conflict and whether you're religious or not, sometimes faith can be a common ground and a way to begin a conversation, especially when things are extremely difficult or beyond just can we talk, basically. So, these books here are really they're not required. I just wanted to give you a couple of recommendations and other ways to think about the class and to remember what this class is about. And this is about finding your way. It's not always easy, but we'll see what we can navigate this summer. That's the video on the books. And I hope you had some information. If you want to contact me, we can talk it over too. If you have any more questions, let me know. Bye, everybody.